Welcome back to Eyewitness News on the KSCW. Charlie O'Hara, attorney, nice enough to join us now as he does every Wednesday morning. Morning, Charlie.
Good morning.
How's it going?
It's going good. How's the weather?
Yeah, terrific. I don't see Charlie much. I'm in the other studio. Carrie usually handles the segment. But we have a caller on the line, and if you have a legal question for Charlie, 436-1212. We have some open lines, so give us a call. First caller, what's your question for Charlie today?
Yes, I'd like to know if you're going through a divorce and it's in dispute and the spouse is not staying there at night, can you go ahead and change your locks on your door?
Well, I think you can. I mean, a little of it depends on when you're doing all these things. I mean, once you go to court and get a court order, you can get a temporary order in a divorce, which means one party can go in that files first, and they can go in and get a temporary order that controls what happens. You have to follow that temporary order, and it may have rules about how you get out of the house and not get out of the house. Before you file that order, before there's any proceeding going on, obviously two people own a house, you can lock your spouse out if you want to. I don't know whether it's a good idea always. It might cause some problems, but you can do that. It just kind of depends on the divorce. Mainly, the best thing for everybody to do is try to be reasonable. Emotions go wild. People should be reasonable in these situations and try to get along. It makes it easier for everybody.
You know, Charlie, that's really one of your daughter's field of expertise, family law, right?
That's correct. That's what she does.
And as far as those situations, you said sometimes you can like throw gas on the fire if you're not careful. So any advice for people going through that kind of a tough time in their life?
Well, you know, every situation changes a little bit, but I think the best thing to do in those situations is try to be reasonable with people. If you're going to get divorced, it's usually something that's coming from a long ways away. I mean, you've been doing it for a long time, and you got to try to talk to your spouse and see if you can work things out. I mean, attorneys make more money when people fight, but quite frankly, it's a lot better for everybody, especially when kids are involved and a lot of properties involved. It's a lot better for people to try to get along. It's very difficult for them to do that, but they should try to do that.
Good point as far as the children especially. You know, a big storm system in the southeast, and already starting to hear some stuff on social media as far as holding people accountable. I mean, kids trapped in school buses overnight, people on the highway. You know, it's personal accountability, yes, but is there any kind of gray area there when it comes to holding some of those city governments accountable for the decisions made?
Well, I don't know. It's pretty hard to sue the government, as we all know, and I think there's an old saying, it's just almost impossible to sue City Hall. But I suppose in those situations, you know, there's going to be some accidents involved. Sometimes the law enforcement officers come out, they don't really know what happened. They take everybody's statement, give somebody a ticket. If you're liable on one of those things, you may want to go to court and contest that, because you don't want to plead guilty to something like that that's going to affect the liability, who pays for what in the accident. If there are accidents, if people are sitting in buses, the first thing we want to do is make sure everybody's safe. I don't know. It's going to be pretty hard to sue the government unless they really kind of dropped the ball and did something that they shouldn't have done. As long as they took reasonable steps once the storm happened, they're probably fine. And
does the scope, you know, just the widespread nature of that event kind of lend itself to maybe that's a form of defense if you get that ticket or that citation?
Well, it's kind of an act of nature. I mean, it's obviously coming on, and you've got to act reasonably under the circumstances, but you can't be driving down the highway on ice at, you know, 75 miles an hour or turn corners real fast or do things. You got to use good judgment. The problem with the South is people aren't used to storms, and all the roads are elevated, and they don't put things on the roads to keep them so you can drive, so it can be a real problem down there.
Charlie O'Hara, attorney, we appreciate you being here, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And if you have some calls or questions, and they come up between now and then, give us a call next week.